This is a special standalone episode of Dark Dialogue. Victim tributes are something that the show kind of grew into. When we connected with the J.J. Hawk Band and we began collaborating with them to honor the people behind these cases, it became something that we believe in deeply. But that means some of our earlier victims never got that moment. So we're going back now, working through every case where we didn't stop to do this because every single one of them deserves it. Heather Elvis is one of those, and her case is one that still doesn't have an ending, not the one that her family deserves. We covered Heather's story in our episode Vanished in the Darkness, so here's what you need to know. Heather Rachelle Elvis was 20 years old, from Horry County, South Carolina, working as a hostess at the Tilted Kilt in Myrtle Beach. On the evening of December 17th, 2013, she went on a date with a high school acquaintance. In the early morning hours of December the 18th, she disappeared. Her car was found at Peachtree Landing on the Waccamaw River. She has never been found. Two people, Sidney Moore and his wife Tammy, were convicted in connection with her disappearance. Sidney is serving a life term without parole for murder. Tammy is serving 30 years for kidnapping. Neither has said where Heather is. Every December 18th, people gather at Peachtree Landing for the night of help, HELPP, hope, encouragement, love, purpose, and perseverance. Heather's garden is there. Her family is still waiting to bring her home. This is What I Leave Behind by the J.J. Hawk Band. And this is Heather Rachelle Elvis. On the evening of December 17th, 2013, Heather Elvis went on a date and learned to drive a stick shift. At some point in the night, they pulled into a parking lot and she got behind the wheel of a manual car and figured it out. And she was so tickled by it that she took a photo and sent it to her dad, grinning, joking. "I bet you never thought I'd learn to drive a stick." That's the Heather that I want to talk about tonight. Not the case, not the investigation, not the long, painful years of trials and appeals and searches that never found what they were looking for. The episode has all of that. This is for her. Heather Rachelle Elvis was born June 30th, 1993 in Horry County, South Carolina. She grew up on the Grand Strand, 60 miles of Atlantic coastline, cypress swamps and Spanish moss, and the particular warmth of a place where the salt air is just part of the air that you breathe every day. It's a place that gets into you. People who grow up there carry it with them, the way you carry a smell or a sound that brings you instantly back to being a kid. Heather carried it. She was a South Carolina girl in her bones. She grew up with her parents, Terry and Debbie, and her younger sister, Morgan. The family kept a relatively private life. They weren't public people, didn't court attention, just lived the way that families in close-knit coastal communities live, connected to each other, connected to the place, present for the ordinary moments that make up a life. From everything that we know, Heather was close to all of them. She didn't drift away when she got older. She stayed in touch. She called, she updated them on things that mattered. She let her family be part of her life, even as she was building her own. She attended St. James High School in Morrell's Inlet, a drive south from Myrtle Beach proper, through the part of Horry County that still feels like old South Carolina before the resort development crept in. She graduated in 2011, and by 2013, she was out on her own, sharing an apartment in Carolina Forest with her best friend, Brianna Whirlman. It was her first real taste of independence, her own space, her own schedule, her own decisions. She was figuring out how to be an adult, which is to say she was doing it imperfectly and enthusiastically and with a lot still ahead of her. That's exactly what 20 is supposed to look like. She worked at the Tilted Kilt as a hostess, and from what her coworkers describe, she was good at it. Not just competent, but genuinely warm in the way that certain people are warm. The kind that makes customers feel like they've been seen rather than just seated. That quality, the ability to make people feel at ease, feel welcome, wasn't a job skill she had learned. It was just who she was. People describe it consistently and in almost the same language every time. She was warm, she was outgoing, she lit up a room. She was expressive in the way of someone who hadn't learned to edit herself for public consumption. She wrote about her feelings online, on Twitter especially, the way young people do when they're still working out the line between private and public, honestly, directly, without performing. She processed things out loud. She was sharp and funny and emotionally perceptive, and she didn't hide those things. What you saw with Heather was what you got. She was 20 years old, which means she was still very much in the middle of becoming. She hadn't finished deciding who she was going to be. She was trying things on, new apartments, new jobs, new relationships, new versions of herself. She was still in the chapter of life where you make decisions from your whole heart and you learn from them and you make more decisions. None of that was weakness. All of it was youth, and youth is not a character flaw. What she had already fully figured out was how to love her people. Terry and Debbie raised a daughter who stayed connected to them, not out of obligation, but because she genuinely wanted to. She shared things with them. She checked in. She sent her dad a joking photo from a parking lot at night because she thought he'd find it funny. Because that's the kind of relationship that they had. That's not a small thing. That's the whole thing, really. The texture of a life is made out of exactly those moments. The photos, the jokes, the small check-ins that say, "I thought of you." And Morgan, her little sister, a teenager when Heather disappeared, who is growing up in the years since inside a grief that has no proper shape because there's been no ending to give it one. Morgan became a teacher. She pours herself into other people's kids, which feels like something Heather would have recognized and been proud of. But she said something once that has stayed with me. I can't plan the future when Heather's stuck in the past. There is more pain in that sentence than most people carry in a lifetime. She was a teenager when she started carrying it. She hasn't been able to put it down. Terry posts on Facebook, "Bring my baby home." Simple words, the same words over and over, year after year, because there's nothing else to say and everything to mean. Debbie keeps Heather's room the way it was. The posters, the clothes, a life frozen at 20, waiting. Every December 18th, the people who loved Heather and the people who never met her but couldn't look away from her story gather at Peachtree Landing in the dark and the cold and say her name out loud together. They've done it every year since she disappeared, and they will keep doing it. That is what Heather Elvis left behind. Not just the tragedy of her case, but the love. The kind of love that builds Facebook pages and tends gardens at boat landings and drives volunteers out to search rivers years after the news has moved on. The kind that makes a father post the same words every year because he means them just as much as he did the first time. The kind that shapes a young sister's whole life. You don't inspire that kind of love by accident. You earn it. You earn it by being the person who sends the photo, who stays close, who makes people feel like they matter. Heather earned it. She was 20 years old and she had already built something real. She deserved every year after that. Every stick shift lesson and midnight phone call and ordinary Tuesday that she never got to have. She deserved to keep becoming whoever she was turning into. For Heather Rachelle Elvis, for Terry, who still posts, "Bring my baby home," for Debbie, who keeps the room, for Morgan, who grew up carrying what no younger sister should ever have to carry. Heather was 20 years old. She was grinning in a parking lot on December the 17th. She sent her dad a photo because she thought he'd laugh. She is not forgotten. She is not a cold case number. She is not the sum of what happened to her. She is Heather Elvis, and her family is still waiting to bring her home.
From the car